Good morning, I'm Taylor Wilson, and today is Friday, November 15th, 2024. This is The Excerpt. Today, Trump continues filling out his cabinet, plus how voters blame the Biden-Harris administration for inflation and whether that was fair. And The Onion has acquired InfoWars. President-elect Donald Trump has nominated Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to be his next Secretary of Health and Human Services. Kennedy spent the majority of the 2024 campaign as an independent candidate, but dropped out and endorsed Trump. He became a de facto advisor on public health after joining the campaign, spinning off the catchphrase, "Make America Healthy Again," from Trump's trademark slogan. Kennedy has a reputation for being critical of vaccines and questioning the origin of the COVID-19 virus. He is perhaps best known for spreading unfounded claims about a link between childhood vaccines and autism. Kennedy has also proposed the removal of fluoride from drinking water. The chemical has been added to U.S. water since 1945 to help prevent tooth decay and is one of the most common ways to prevent cavities. But drinking water is also regulated at the local level, which could limit Kennedy's influence. Trump yesterday also named Todd Blanche, a lawyer who represented him aggressively in his New York hush money trial, to serve as Deputy Attorney General. Jay Clayton, former chair of the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission during his first term as the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, and former Republican Congressman Doug Collins to be his Secretary of the Department of Veteran Affairs in his administration. For Donald Trump, retribution time is nearly at hand. The incoming president's at times surprise picks, particularly his nomination of former GOP Congressman Matt Gaetz for Attorney General, signal he is serious about going after political opponents. Now those who have tangled with Trump in the past are contemplating what they may be facing in the coming months if he follows through on his campaign rhetoric and uses the full force of the U.S. government to go after them. Former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton said on CNN this week, when asked if he was concerned about being targeted, quote, "He's got a long list of people to seek retribution against. I don't know where I am on the hit parade these days, but this is something we should stand against. You don't prosecute your political opponents for disagreeing with you," unquote. Trump's initial batch of job announcements and upcoming nominations have sent shockwaves through national security, legal, and political circles, with experts telling USA Today they are ominous signs of what the next administration could bring. Gaetz, like Trump, has said he believes the Biden Justice Department targeted him, and the new AG nominee has made no secret of his desire to make changes in the justice system. Pete Hegseth, Trump's nominee to lead the Department of Defense, has used his position at Fox News to share Trump criticisms of the military, especially generals who pushed back at the president during his first term. And Tulsi Gabbard, a military veteran and former Democratic member of Congress who is Trump's pick for Director of National Intelligence, has criticized the intelligence community for some of its actions, particularly with regard to Russia. You can read more with a link in today's show notes. Voters blamed the Biden-Harris administration for inflation. Was that fair? I spoke with USA Today personal finance reporter Daniel Devisay as the economists weigh in. Daniel, good morning.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure having you on as always, Daniel. So I just want to get some of the numbers out of the way at the top, Daniel. I know we have some fresh numbers this week. Where does inflation stand right now? Where are things?
Yeah, as of October, prices are up 2.6% year over year, which is not very high. That would be unremarkable at any other time. But because we've just had this big inflation crisis, everybody's watching to see if it comes back down. 2% is the target rate set by the Federal Reserve. And we're getting there. But inflation is definitely still a thing, as I said in the paper today.
Yeah, so this was a great piece you outlined here, Daniel. How was this election really a referendum on inflation to some extent? How did things shake out last week?
I mean, how many times have I read about the price of eggs in the past week and a half that everybody was thinking about the price of eggs when they went to the poll? I think exit polls show that people were thinking about inflation, cumulative inflation over the past 4 years, at least a lot of the people who voted for Donald Trump and who awarded him a second go at the presidency. It was a huge issue. And those people who are paying more for eggs, I don't think they necessarily care that the inflation rate is now lower because prices are permanently higher.
So Harris lost the election, Daniel. Did voters blame her? Did they blame the Biden-Harris administration for high inflation? And really, was that fair? What did you find speaking with experts?
The CBS News exit poll speaks to this most directly. 3/4 of all voters, 75% of voters, said inflation is a hardship. And more than 2/3 told ABC News that the economy is in bad shape. So it was clearly top of mind. So I went and I interviewed 7 different economists from across the spectrum and said, well, were Biden and Harris to blame for the inflation? And then asked them if they could sort of order what they think were the reasons for all this inflation.
And what did you find, Daniel?
I would say most of them, if not all of them, said the number one reason for our inflation crisis was the pandemic. The global pandemic was a global thing and it raised prices absolutely everywhere. There was inflation around the world. Now, Biden's administration was responsible for the third stimulus package. If you remember the third set of checks everyone got, which was in 2021, that was Joe Biden's initiative. And that's where economists pin some blame on him. All of the economists said to some extent that stimulus round under President Biden probably made inflation worse, but it didn't cause the inflation in the first place. That's a very important point. Of course, Kamala Harris was not the president. And so our economists noted that she is one step removed from all of this. If you blame Joe Biden for that round of stimulus checks in 2021, you can't really blame Kamala Harris for it. I think, though, you would say the Democrats as a whole, as a party, sort of lost the presidency, just as Trump lost the presidency and the Republicans in 2020, largely also because of COVID and its effects.
Okay, so I am also curious, Daniel, how much blame the first Trump administration should get for some of these early effects of inflation. He was in office during the pandemic and then also instituted his own stimulus packages. I mean, does he get any blame as part of this conversation?
Well, the Brookings economist I interviewed noted that both Republicans and Democrats threw money at the problem, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. There were 3 rounds of stimulus checks, 2 under President Trump and then the third under President Biden. Now, it's easy to say in hindsight that third one might have been a little excessive, but both presidents used the same approach. And a lot of the economists I spoke to said it was a good thing in as much as because of those stimulus dollars, the economy definitely got moving again. We didn't have extended joblessness. The unemployment rate's been very low for quite a long time now. The economy continued to grow. So all that's to the good, according to our economists. But Biden does get some blame for maybe making the inflation worse with this third round of checks. And it's easy again to say this now, but now you could say maybe those first 2 stimulus payments were okay, but the third one was, one too many or something.
And in terms of inflation and the economic climate that the second Trump administration will face, Daniel, we know prices remain high on all kinds of goods. What exactly is the situation that Trump will inherit this time around?
Inflation is under control. And one thing we've noticed is that when Trump won election last week, the stock market rejoiced because I think business people, the market, are excited about what he might do for the economy. But the bond market sort of tanked. And that's because bond investors are worried that President-elect Trump has talked about severe tariffs, possible deportations of illegal immigrants, and those things could cause a new round of inflation. So some people, at least who are monitoring the economy, are afraid that some of the incoming president's economic policies could actually cause another round of inflation. So we may have that to look forward to.
We'll keep an eye out. Daniel Devise covers personal finance for USA Today. Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you, sir.
The global cryptocurrency market's value has topped $3 trillion following the election of Donald Trump. The sum market value of cryptocurrencies touched a high of nearly $3.2 trillion early yesterday in Asia, based on analytics and data aggregator CoinGecko, after reaching just shy of that level last year. The latest surge marks a revival from a few months ago when crypto prices became stagnant. Trump's election and that of several pro-crypto lawmakers to Congress has driven the rise by potentially clearing some of the uncertainty around U.S. regulations. The satirical news site The Onion has acquired InfoWars, the media platform from conspiracy theorist Alex Jones, at auction. I spoke with USA Today national news reporter Janine Santucci for more. Janine, thanks for making some time today.
Thanks for having me.
So just starting here, Janine, I think a lot of people are familiar with The Onion, but for anyone who may not be aware, what is The Onion?
So The Onion is a satire news site, and it parodies topics that dominate national news, political news, local news. but you'll see some pretty humorous headlines from them.
All right, so this story centers around InfoWars. Remind us what InfoWars is, and really, how did we get to this point?
InfoWars is a conspiracy theory peddling site that was founded by Alex Jones in the late 90s. Come a long way since then. In the last decade or so, he has used the site to push these false claims that the 2012 Sandy Hook Elementary School mass shooting was a hoax. He's made all kinds of claims about crisis actors being involved in order to stage this mass shooting, which of course has been tremendously harmful to the families of the victims of that shooting, who in 2022 won a lawsuit, a defamation suit, to the tune of about $1.4 billion against Alex Jones. And shortly after that, he filed for bankruptcy. And so as part of the bankruptcy, he was forced to auction off his assets, which includes the InfoWars site. It also includes, the physical studio location that he was operating InfoWars out of, a number of social media handles, and other properties.
Yeah, so The Onion has now acquired InfoWars as part of this auction process, as you mentioned. This is a curious move. Why did The Onion make this move, and what do they plan to do with InfoWars?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So The Onion has reminded us, that it's known for its signature commentary on gun violence. I mean, every time there's a mass shooting, they repost their headline, "No way to prevent this, says only nation where this regularly happens." But its owners said that they're going to relaunch the InfoWars site starting in January of next year. They want to, quote, end the relentless barrage of disinformation and use it instead for what they're calling humor for good. And they also made an agreement with Everytown for Gun Safety, which is a gun violence prevention organization that is going to be exclusively advertising on the relaunched site.
And of course, Sandy Hook victims' families are at the heart of all of this. Have we heard from them? How do they feel about this?
Yeah, so according to their attorneys, the families were fully on board with the Onion's acquisition. And they even agreed to take a smaller recovery amount from what they were owed so that the Onion's bid would be stronger, which, they're saying helped the Onion successfully acquire it. But yeah, the families have really just been saying that this whole process has been less about the money and more about holding Alex Jones accountable and, preventing him from having the ability to continue spreading those conspiracy theories.
For Alex Jones, for InfoWars, this seems like a devastating blow to him. What's next?
It was definitely upsetting news to him. I was watching him yesterday, shortly after the announcement about the acquisition came out. He was live streaming on social media, clearly upset about the outcome. He claims that he is going to fight the outcome in court. He says that the auction process was unfair, and he said it was rigged in favor of his opponents. He had hoped that a company would come along and prevail in the auction that would be more friendly to him and hopefully allow him to continue creating content through InfoWars. And now that that's not the case, he's clearly very upset about it. But he says in the meantime, he's still going to be a presence online. He still has his social media platforms. I was watching him a lot of the day yesterday, and he was still live streaming all day long. He says he has a backup studio, so he's definitely not disappearing from the internet, but we'll see whether his attempts in court are successful or not.
All right, big development here. Janine Santucci covers national news for USA Today. Thank you, Janine.
Thanks so much.
And today is America Recycles Day, a chance to think about our waste and its impact on the planet. Thanks for listening to The Excerpt. We're produced by Shannon Ray Green and Kaylee Monahan, and our executive producer is Laura Beatty. You can get the podcast wherever you get your pods, and if you're on a smart speaker, just ask for The Excerpt. I'm Taylor Wilson, and I'll be back tomorrow with more of The Excerpt from USA Today.